We're going to go ahead and call Administration and Finance to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Beebe?
Present.
Dr. Beebe is present. Ms. Bolfie?
Here.
Ms. Bolfie is present. Ms. Bradford? Ms. Bradford is not present. Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Mr. Garvey is present. Mr. Gio? Mr. Gio is not present. Ms. Hill? Ms. Hill is not present. Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee is not present. Dr. Moranti? Dr. Moranti is present. Mr. Romer?
Here.
Mr. Romer is present. Ms. Smith? Ms. Smith is not present. Ms. Orange-Jones?
Present.
Ms. Orange-Jones is present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. First item.
The consent agenda is ready for approval, adding items 7.2 and 8.1 and pulling item 2.2 due to public comment.
So move.
Motion
So move.
and a second to approve the consent agenda, pulling item 2.2 for public comment. Any objection? Hearing none?
I need
Oh,
to,
I'm sorry.
well, 2.1 is included under consent.
Yes.
I need to abstain because my district is receiving funding.
Okay. Can we do that? Can we note that? We'll make sure we note it tomorrow, certainly. 2.2, no objection to the motion, noting that Dr. Beebe needs to abstain from item 2.1, and we'll pull item 2.2. We have a public comment, and if you'll read item 2.2.
On page 12, item 2.2, consideration of LDE contracts of $50,000 and under, approved by the State Superintendent of Education. The recommendation is to receive.
So move.
We have a motion to receive and a second. I'm going to ask Ms. Barrios if she would like to comment. She did turn in the comment card.
Lee Berry's retired teacher from St. Ted. This is going to be short and sweet, and since I'm not going to get a response anyway, but I'm going to throw it out there, and maybe somebody on the board would be interested. I just question again, it's a question of where is our assessment coming from in the spring, and I see all these contracts, once again, for, I assume they're teachers, writing assessment questions. So I just wonder what these assessment questions are for, because that isn't clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment?
Well, and Mr. Romer, I don't know, and Ms. Barrios referenced the fact that she didn't think we would get a response, but this is what I referenced earlier in my comments when I discussed the 3 to 8 assessments. So I think, we need to understand what these contracts are about. There are individuals who are writing assessment items, so I would assume that would be those items would be aligned to and I don't want to say the park assessment because park is a consortium. So
I can answer that.
And again, it's LEAP. And I don't know why we use park when, in essence, the law says that in Louisiana we take the LEAP. So I think it's a lot of confusion. I know that it's a lot of confusion. So I will give you the courtesy of responding.
Sure. Bridget Devlin, Department of Education. Those contracts are all Louisiana current educators, and they are creating the questions that will be used in EAGLE, which is our test prep system that teachers can use to give practice tests to prepare for the assessment.
Okay, well, with that said, Ms. Bridget, we were promised a practice test for the spring assessment. Our educators, and I know in the past, even with LEAP, we more or less received the practice test around this time. So do we have a definitive date? Because that's the question posed to me in the district. When will our teachers receive those practice?
I would be happy to connect our assessment team with you. Since this is administration and finance, I didn't have the assessment staff down here, but I will definitely connect you to get you that answer.
Okay, and okay, will you clarify this for me?
Any other comments or questions? Any objection to receiving the item? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
On page 43, item 4.1, consideration of discussion of the MFP formula. The recommendation is to receive.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and there's a second. There is a public comment card. I will say that, and we'll go to public comment first. Lee Barrios,
What page is that on?
item 4.1,
What page is that?
page 43, discussion of the MFP formula.
Lee Barrios, retired teacher, St. Henry. So really this is about the schools that didn't meet 70%. Am I correct? Make sure I'm on the right page.
Yes.
So my concern is that I went through each of these and I didn't see anywhere, because there's a concern that this continues, and I was wondering what the specifics are of why they're not meeting this requirement. And nowhere in there did I see any reference to administrative salaries, which my understanding is for some charter schools are extremely high. I didn't see anybody saying they were going to make an adjustment to that, nor did I see any reference with regard to the charters for their charter management fees. And it would be interesting, I think useful for this board in considering in the department what to do with these schools to assist them to determine exactly what is the percent. Maybe they need to adjust the percentage of their management fees, and that's a contractual issue with BESE. So those are my concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Barrios. Mr. Lee.
This is good information that's been furnished, but it does not. Previously, I think we had information that showed how many years school systems had not met the 70% requirement. That's not listed here, and I don't see anybody from finance here, but I'm of the impression that the number of public school systems listed has decreased, which means, if that's accurate, then it means more local school systems are meeting the 70% requirement.
I think you're correct, Mr. Lee. I don't recall if the number of years were listed. I do recall that it seems that the list has gotten shorter.
Appears like it's shorter.
For both traditional systems and for non-traditional charter schools.
Well,
but we can certainly
I'm not
verify that for your
I'm
information.
not sure about the charter schools. Maybe I'm wrong, but this seems to me like an increased number for charter schools. I don't quite understand, just not that knowledgeable about charter school funding, but it looks to me like public school systems have some requirements for support services that they don't have. It looks like it would make it be easier for charter schools to meet the 70% requirement than for a traditional school system. Might be wrong, but it seems to me that it would be that way. So I guess my question would be, why are these charter schools not able to meet the 70% requirement for academic?
We can certainly follow up. In the report, it mentions on each of the charter schools why they're short and what they're trying to do to remedy it. I think Ms. Barrios brought up a comment that's probably worth exploring just for information purposes. But I actually think this list has gotten smaller. We can verify that. I think this list has gotten smaller, certainly on the traditional district side. But I think it's gotten smaller on the charter school side as well, as a lot of these charter schools have gotten larger over time, adding grades. Their ability to meet the 70% requirement has gone up. The smaller schools tend to struggle more than, just like a smaller district tends to struggle more than the large district.
Well, if more of them are meeting it, that's good, because I think it's showing that we are putting, or they are putting more emphasis on instruction, and that's good.
Why don't we try to confirm the numbers? If we
It's
can do
not
that.
necessary.
Any other comment? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
On page 49, item 5.1, 8G program and budget revisions and/or progress reports on statewide or block grant programs for FY 2014-2015, New Schools Incubation and Educator Preparation Pilot Program. The recommendation is to approve.
Can I have a motion to approve? Motion by Ms. Bofi, seconded by Dr. Moranti. Mr. Garvey, you have a question?
Yes, the new schools incubation, may need somebody from staff on this. Is that charter schools? New charter schools incubation?
There are some, let's see, Bridget may be able to give, but there are some that do receive allocations.
That pot of money looks at turning around failing schools and then also setting up new schools. So a lot of it does go to funding new charter schools.
Okay, and I've heard from 2 or 3 charter schools in Jefferson Parish that were expecting to get some startup funding from the department, and recently went to the Jefferson Community Foundation saying that they didn't get the startup funding, and so they were asking the Jefferson Community Foundation for some money to help replace that. Is this that money, or is this additional money that
So
would not
I'm
go to charter
unclear.
schools to help them start up?
I'd be happy to talk to you about that and see if they applied for a Believe and Succeed grant and either didn't get the grant. I believe the funding that we set aside for Believe and Succeed had been expended, and so we have some additional money that's needed for another purpose and are repurposing that funding. But I'm not sure if they applied and
They did, and I think I was told by department staff that the money was taken out of Believe and Succeed in order to use it for Believe and Prepare.
so the money will be used for Believe and Prepare. I would have to look at the numbers to see why those schools were not funded. I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay.
Mr.
well,
Garvey, would you like them to research it and then tomorrow maybe
Yeah.
try to answer your question?
Yeah, I need to look into it more, go ahead and
Okay.
let it go through, I guess, for right now.
Okay. So we can follow up with Mr. Garvey tomorrow, and he may have a question regarding that tomorrow?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Lee?
On page 56,
Page 56.
toward the lower part of that page where it said aid to local school boards, $240,225. It lists Jefferson, Orleans, and Union parishes. For Orleans, is that the Orleans School Board, or is it the Orleans, is it RSD, or do we know?
Kim?
Someone from the department. Remember, these funds are, they're administered by the department, so I'm going to see if we can get someone from the department to come and give more information about how they're directed.
He has a
There's
question.
another question. I know
He has
you
another
wanted
question.
another question, so we've gotten one.
You got
We're
the
on,
C team here.
save these
I apologize.
questions just for you.
We're on page 56 now. You don't have it in front of you, but I don't think you do.
I can get it there.
Mr. Lee wanted some clarification on page 56. In the box, the lower box, is a line that says aid to local school boards, $240,225. And then it lists Jefferson, Orleans, and Union parishes. And he was wondering if that's Orleans Parish School Board, is that RSD?
It is Orleans Parish.
Orleans Parish.
Orleans Parish
Does that
School
mean
Board?
that,
Yes.
does that mean the parish school system, school board?
It is schools that are within the Orleans Parish School Board system. So not the RSD.
How do we decide, well, first of all, it does not indicate how much to each one of those, but how is it decided those are the 3 needs? That's all right. You don't.
I mean, it is at the discretion of the department. I believe,
That's all right.
And Bridget, we know you've been left here by yourself, so.
I've discovered that. I'd be happy to look into it and get you a little
Why don't
more.
we follow up on that question as well?
Yeah.
May or may not require another question tomorrow.
that's
Is that
all
okay,
right.
Mr.
No,
Lee?
it-
I'd be happy to get you the answer. It's just going to take me a second.
Mr. Rowan.
Yes, Dr. Beebe.
I have a question. Okay, funds will be distributed through the competitive application process to nonprofit organizations and local education agencies. So if I recall, in October, we discontinued the competitive grant award. So this is for
Remember that this is a statewide program, and so this is administered through or by the Department of Education. So they have a competitive process that they run in order to award these particular funds. So this is separate from the competitive that we had, or that was not funded
Okay,
right
this is,
for 15-16.
Okay.
Yes.
So the LDOE has a separate pool of money.
They do. They have a separate allocation, and within that allocation, they set up different programs, and within that program, they have a competitive process.
And this would be, as Bridget alluded to, the Believe and Succeed program, or Believe and Prepare?
Yes, yes, that is correct.
Because it's talking about leadership development.
Correct, that's correct.
And I have an answer to your previous question. The reason it's listed Jefferson, Orleans, and Union, this is money that has been allocated, and those were the only 3 parishes that submitted applications that met that category, the professional development or new schools incubation. So this is not listing what the department decided to do ahead of time. This is actually what happened.
So this is in response to what y'all put out as...
Yes, this is how this money was spent.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
You passed that test.
Any objections to the motion on the floor?
I don't even know where we at, bro.
This item, what item is this? 5.1.
Okay.
Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
On page 66, item 6.1, consideration of federal state grants and allocations to LEAs, Type 2 charters, Type 5 charters, approved non-public schools, and community-based organizations. The recommendation is to approve.
I move.
There's a motion by Dr. Beebe to approve, seconded by Ms. Bofi. There's no public comment card on this item. Are there any questions from board members? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Page 72, item 6.2, consideration of LDE contracts and leases of $50,000 and over. The recommendation is to approve.
Motion by Dr. Moraney, second by Ms. Bofi. We do have a public comment card, which I'll recognize and then see if the board has any questions. Ms. Barrios.
Is her mic, is your mic on?
I'm usually too loud anyway, which is reviewing and recommending new charters. So the problem is, this question came to me and I looked into it. SchoolWorks, there seems to be a huge conflict of interest in the fact that SchoolWorks not only works for you to review these contracts, but they also work for charter management companies to help them write contracts. And one of the clients that they have listed on their website is KIP, which comes to you with their charters, their charter applications to get approved by you. That seems like that makes it not a third-party independent agency, which the law requires. I looked back in doing a little bit of research. I looked back at a newspaper article last year when that reported that NACSA no longer did this work for you, and there was some conversation about how much it costs, the difference in cost. And Mr. White said that, well, SchoolWorks only charges about $5,000 per contract to review, whereas NACSA charged about $9,000. So looking at the total contract award here for 33 months, I just did a little simple calculation and came up with, if you figure $5,000, that's 180 charter reviews. Hopefully there won't be anywhere near 100 new charter applications in the next 33 months. So I was wondering what this fee was based on and why the amendment. And I would think before you vote on this, it would be something that the board would be interested in too. On what basis is this company paid? But the biggest concern is the conflict of interest, and I would think it would be a legal concern for you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Dr.
Ms. Barrios,
Levy, I'm sorry.
I want to thank you for the clarification because you always make me feel so inept at not being as informed as you. So you did clarify that you do get some, have additional resources, and I do appreciate you. Oftentimes you copy me. But I'm very much concerned about the amended cost, and again, the contract, if you will, is competitive. So I know that at one point we had the charter, NASCA, the National Association of Charters, and so who else provides a bid, if you will, or a dollar amount if it's competitive? Do we have others interested in providing the service?
So I'm going to try to answer all of those. If I miss one, let me know. We did put an RFP out for this 2 years ago. The amendment is adding another year onto this contract, so this will be a 3-year contract. The amount that we have amended it by each year has been the same. That amount has not changed, so we have basically extended it for a year and added the same amount of money to extend it for a year. At the end of this next year, we will have to put out another RFP.
But is that legal to extend the contract?
Yes.
Okay, so that answers that. And then again, Ms. Barrios brings forth a very legitimate concern, is that it's working with charter schools and those that, for example, she referenced KIPP. So this is of concern to me.
So if there is ever a conflict of interest between the third-party evaluator and a charter applicant, we do bring in another firm to do the external review. We have had to do that before. We did not have to do it this year. But there is a process in place if that concern arises.
And so this amended amount is for an additional year?
Yes, ma'am. If you look at the previous contract dates and the new date of services, it extends it for a year.
Can I assume you have in effect said that SchoolWorks does not evaluate the programs that they have been working with in developing their applications?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? I appreciate that response. Any other questions? There's a motion on the floor. Are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
On page 74, item 6.3, consideration of fiscal dialogues as a result of the fiscal risk assessment processes. The recommendation is to receive.
We have a motion by Ms. Bophy, second by Dr. Moranti. We do have a public comment card. I will ask her if she would like to speak. Christy Gibbons. So, Christy Gibbons. Not here. Anybody else have a comment or question?
Would this fall in line with the most recent legislative auditor's report citing concerns?
You know, I can't answer that specifically because I don't recall. I know that he did come speak to me prior to this and said he did not have anything on this agenda to comment on. So it might be a separate item. I can certainly follow up and make sure you get that information back.
We could pull this tomorrow in
if we needed to. You want to, Ms. Devlin, you want to go ahead and give comment?
So this is a separate item. This is LEAs that are in the LDE fiscal dialogue process. So we reported schools that were found to have financial issues, and they can either be in dialogue or monitored, and we have to check back in with you on a more regular basis on the LEAs that are in fiscal dialogue. And this is the one school that's in fiscal dialogue right now, so we are giving you an update on this. This is our process, not the auditors.
This is one of the checks that we do in our reporting of the charter. This is a charter school
Yes,
organization.
this
correct?
school may have shown up in an audit report, but this is our follow-up process.
Any other questions? Any objection to receiving the report? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
On page 75, item 7.1, consideration of RSD contracts and leases of $50,000 and over. The recommendation is to approve.
Motion by Ms. Bofi, second by Ms. Orange Jones to approve. Ms. Hankins is here if anyone has a question. Does anyone have a question?
I'm curious, it says on page 76, we employ or contract with a vendor who provides legal services, I guess it is, and it says the justification is the RSD has embarked upon a massive program of the school facilities master plan, and it said something, it referenced legal issues arising this year related to construction contracts. So is there, are we, have we been served a lawsuit?
Ms. Hankins, if you don't mind introducing yourself and answering Dr. Beebe's
Good
questions.
evening. I'm Lona Edwards Hankins. So we have probably over 100, with 80 projects. We'll have at any given time, 2 to 3 contracts on every building, an architect's contract and general contractor's contract and other support services. So that's what that contract is for. I know that there are a couple of projects that are under litigation right now that this firm is handling for us.
So that it's an amendment, and again, that's because of an increase in the date of service, or is it just, why is there an amendment?
So